lost all my respect for the Tsar. Everything has been going downhill since our embarrassing defeat against the Japanese in the war.
We must revolt now. It can't get any worse than it already is.
Newspaper delivery.
What does it say?
It says, pogroms sweep across Russia.
Yet another catastrophe in our country. Being born as a Jew is a death sentence in Russia.
The Tsar's autocracy has done nothing but let us down.
I have been losing respect for my people. We've given them peace and expanded into the east, and still they are unhappy with my rule.
It can't be that bad, Nicholas. They must respect you as their Tsar.
My rule is absolutely fair. I must remain strong as an idol for my people, and a guide for my weak son. If there's any revolt, I will squash it.
Capone.
We demand peace in the East.
Yeah, we demand
Reforms
peace.
in the government.
Come on.
The
Reforms.
absolute rule.
Let's
the
go.
corrupt rule.
No,
Well, boys, new orders came in from high command. In order to fire upon the crowd. Ready your aim, and fire.
I can't believe this Tsar would continue to enforce kulaks after kulaks.
I know. There were 1,000 casualties during Bloody Sunday, all with the intent of advocating for change peacefully.
How do we know this was the Tsar's doing? The troops were the ones who fired on the crowd.
Isn't it obvious? The Tsar has complete rule. All the commands that are given in this country are a result of the Tsar's evil doing.
Tsar Nicholas doesn't have any right to rule this nation. Father Capon came seeking peace, and he was met with bullets.
We must continue this revolution. No one will silence us anymore.
I write with news of my condition and advice for yours in Russia. I made haste to leave Munich in order to evade Bavarian police. They don't take too kindly to us smuggling in our pamphlet to Russia. I've decided to stay in London, where I've met a similar-minded Mr. Trotsky. However, there appears to be a break in ideas with some of my peers in London, and we split into the factions of the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. Considering your situation, you must inspire the people into revolt. The only way to realize our dream is a more radical approach to what already is happening in Russia. Encourage the masses into armed insurrection and drown St. Petersburg in blood so that the people may rise in a beautiful communist red.
Sire, it is my duty to report to you that the crew aboard the battleship of Potemkin, they have overthrown high-ranking officials inspired by the people against you.
We must keep the military in check. Without absolute rule and complete control over armed forces, the Tsar is just a figurehead.
You must sign this manifesto. It is the only way to stop these revolts. If we meet the revolts with violence, it only inspires violent protest. I beg you, Tsar, this is your last chance, and all that will happen is for you to lose a small amount of power.
Have you heard the rumors? People have been spreading word that the revolts have finally reached the mind of the government. There's a possibility of a more liberal-minded government now, an end to autocracy.
Newspaper delivery. News from St. Petersburg. The Tsar has signed the October Manifesto promising civil liberties and an elected parliament to the people, called the Duma.
This is incredible. The shape of Russia has changed forever. We must keep pushing for liberal reforms with revolts. If anything, this manifesto tells us that our revolts are working and changing Russia for the better.
Meanwhile, in St. Petersburg, the Tsar and his family are accompanied by a spiritual monk named Rasputin, who they believe has single-handedly cured their hemophilic son. The public and the Russian nobility see Rasputin as deranged and possibly influencing the words of the throne from behind.
Damn it, Wilhelm. You forced my hand to think the state of the world has come to this. The supreme powers of Europe, whose goal was to remain in peace, are now separated into factions.
You're making so much noise. What's the matter?
My cousins in the West are making a ruckus, and now they've tied me into it. I'm afraid we received a declaration of war, and I'm in no position to back down. I will be taking command myself, joining the Triple Entente, and moving to the front lines. I'm sending a note to my advisors. We're cutting ties with anything German, manufacturing trade, even the name of the city is too German.
That German spy collaborating with the Holy Man? Life seems to be more desperate with the Tsar gone on the front line.
I know, what could be worse than being ruled by one of your enemies and a psychopath?
A cordial invite from a prince to the Moika Palace. Now, how could I deny this? Hello, Prince Felix Yusupov.
Ah, no, Queen.
This cake is truly delicious. And this wine, too.
I'm glad.
How is he not dead? The food is laced with cyanide.
Excuse me while I grab some refreshments. I need the pistol.
Plan A failed,
Yes.
so we have plan B.
Better look at the crucifix and say a prayer holding me down. May corruption end within the palace. I've landed a clean shot on him.
Good.
Goodbye, holy man.
Dearest Nicholas, I hope the front lines in war are treating you better than I hear. The longer this drags on, the worse it seems to get. We must seek victory or peace to get the people's beloved Tsar back home. The people are upset without you and the strikes are becoming more violent. I'm starting to get worried for Petrograd.
Dearest Alexandria, the war has not been treating me well. Every day the Germans seem to kill more of our men than we can of theirs. I've received a telegram about these uprisings, and we must reply strongly. I'm giving the order to disperse the demonstrators by force.
The revolts have turned to revolution. The garrisons sent to disperse the group have joined them and started to share their weapons. We can no longer rely on local militia. We are bunkered down in the Winter Palace.
My plan was to stop this revolt by marching in troops from the front lines back into the city. However, it seems like they have been caught in this revolutionary fervor as well. The situation seems hopeless. The Duma is constituting a government and I am being forced to abdicate. These fools of revolution don't know what they're getting into.
The Tsar has officially abdicated his throne to the people. A new professional government has been established with help from Soviets with me, Prince Lvov, as the leader. With Soviet backing, our goal is to give liberty to the people with rapid socialist reforms.
4 days ago, I launched the attack against Austria-Hungary. We were initially successful, but as the days went by, the troops became more and more demoralized. Due to their lack of faith, now we have to fight the German and Austro-Hungarian troops. The government needs to remain strong now more than ever and become more supported by the people. Otherwise, the government jurisdiction will crumble.
During a series of protests, the Soviets release evidence that Lenin and the Bolsheviks are conspiring with the Germans. Trotsky and Lenin flee the country, and their property was looted and destroyed. During the chaos, Kerensky becomes the leader of the provisional government and remains support under the Soviets.
This is unbelievable. The troops on the German front continue to lose battle after battle. They have even taken full control of the Baltics and are pushing towards Petrograd. The countryside is filled with mass looting, rioting, and uprising against anyone. They don't even know whose house to burn anymore. The Soviets are no longer loyal to the provisional government and are completely controlled by the Bolsheviks. My generals keep warning me that if I don't sign a peace treaty now, the troops will desert, but the Bolsheviks will exploit that weakness. The provisional government is no longer listening to the demands of the people. It must be stopped.
As we speak, Sir Leon Trotsky is organizing a military coup against Kerensky and making demands against the weak government.
Soon the government will fall to the rightful hands of the Bolsheviks, which promise peace, land, bread.
Peace, land, and bread. That reminds me of something.
Lenin has returned.
As the Congress continued to stir up the people, Leon Trotsky managed to take control of the Winter Palace, and the Soviets, with the Bolsheviks at the head, took official control of the government. The Soviet government has put in all of the reforms that it has promised. We've given the land back to the people, and we've even increased food production for the peasants. And now we're beginning peace talks with the Germans. The German terms are too harsh for some to accept, and this has led to protest within the Soviet Council. Trotsky has an idea that's been getting popular called no war and no peace, where we withdraw from the front lines. Trotsky's idea was passed. An official withdrawal from the front lines has begun, which was followed by close German pursuit. They began pushing into the countryside at an unprecedented rate. Now, we are signing a treaty with even worse conditions, but our hands have been forced. At least now we will finally have peace from this terrible war.
Today we have convened to discuss the Civil War breakout. As we are aware, the anti-Bolshevik White Army has been conspiring with deserters from the war and building up in the countryside. The situation grows more dire and more allies that they find in Europe, especially Italy and France. There is also a steady buildup of Japanese troops on the eastern border. We must do something in order to stop the attacks.
In order to defeat this beast, we must have a strong control over the economy. I recommend nationalizing all industries under war communism to bolster supplies for an upcoming battle against these various troops. If we have an economic advantage, we can put an end to the Whites' rival government. The Soviet Red Army must remain victorious.
As the Russian Civil War continued, a bolstered economy helped the Red Army in battle after battle as they reigned victorious and upheld a sense of pride for the Soviet government.
Mankind hard jack.
Absolutely delicious, isn't it?
Fine. Get down!
Nicholas, Alexandra, on your knees.
In the chaos, the former Tsar and his family were executed in fear of them fleeing to the White Army for freedom.
The war has finally ended, and with it, the need for the policy of war communism has also ended. As we celebrate the victory of the Soviet Army, we must also focus on bettering our nation. The new economic policy that I propose will increase economic motivation by reinstalling a currency into the land and removing industry from the state. We must show the deniers that the Soviets bleed red.